Number five, sustain the standard. So this now kind of calls back to those earlier episodes that we did just a few weeks ago of what rewards or incentives are in place for exceeding the standard. So this ties in with the motivation that they now know the standard, they've been assessed, so they comprehend the standard. Now, when they're actually doing it, how do we make sure we keep doing it? Tired of outdated systems holding your attraction back?
Gatemaster believes technology is part of the experience, transforming every touchpoint into an opportunity.
Imagine seamless online booking, effortless mobile ordering, and data-driven insights at your fingertips.
Ready to revolutionize your guest journey and maximize revenue?
Power your attraction with Gatemaster.
Discover the future at gatemaster.com.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going fantastically, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Recently, we recorded an episode on extending training. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we also followed that episode up with another episode on recognition and reinforcement. And those two really tied together. And I've been thinking about these and actually even pulling back further of like 30,000 or even 50,000 foot view. And my question here is, why is training such a strong emphasis in an organization?
Why is it or why should it be?
Both.
Okay.
In an organization that focuses heavily on training, why is it so important?
Well, I think it's important because people need to know things, right? People need to build skills. And whether you are someone who has been in the same type of industry in the past, there's probably nuances of how you do things at this new particular industry or this new particular company that they need to know about. So we need to train them on those skills. We need to make sure that they are creating memories, positive memories for the guests. And if we're talking about frontline team members, they need to know how to run the POS system or run the ride or fold the t-shirt or how the game is supposed to be flashed. So all of that has to come from training at some point. And then the other part of that is how people are actually interacting with one another. So you're not only training on skills, but you're also training on kind of culture and attitude. So I think if you want your organization to be successful, those type of trainings are things that should be happening all the time, ongoing, so that you're always kind of hitting those notes with every team member.
That was a pretty robust answer for a question I just pulled right out of the blue. You had that ready to go. And here's the challenge that I find is that a lot of organizations, they say training, we need to train our employees, we need to continue training. So it has a very positive intention. But sometimes it might be lacking the things that surround training that then go into, well, there's the training, but then what? Or what are we actually training on? I remember a teacher I had in high school who talked about trying to get better and better at a skill. I think he used basketball as an example. And he said, you can keep practicing basketball, but if you're practicing the wrong skills, or you're practicing the wrong way or the wrong form, you're not going to get any better. And that's one thing that I've seen from time to time of, are we actually training the right thing? So one of the things that that I do with my business is I help with guest experience strategy. And part of that is really crafting the service culture. And part of that is training, but it's not just training. There's a lot of things around it. So in this minisode, what I wanted to share was 7 steps to craft a guest service culture that goes beyond training. Training's part of it, but it's really looking at it from that, like I said, that 50,000 foot view, from that holistic standpoint of where does it actually fit in with everything else?
So I love this topic because as much as I love training and I had that robust answer ready, I know that this is not the be all end all of even team member performance, right? I used to teach a class called To Train or Not to Train. And I would stand up on a chair and I would get all Shakespeare and I would say, to train or not to train? That is the question. And really, I think it's right in line with what you're focusing on because yes, training is a big part of how we build skills and how we build knowledge. But at the same time, there's so many other environmental factors that we have to look into. So this is probably what you're going to get into, but just as a maybe a precursor, when you look at why someone does what they're doing or how they're doing it, yes, training could be an issue, but it might be 1,000 other different things. So that's what I would say, to train or not to train. Am I going to retrain that person on how to, do X, Y, and Z? Is that why they're not doing it because they don't have the knowledge or the skill? Or are there many other factors that are getting in the way? And so if we spend that time retraining, not only are we wasting our time and money, but we're probably frustrating the heck out of that team member
Yeah. And not solving any actual issue.
and not solving any actual issue.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So for number one, I like to say you need to establish your guest experience vision. So if we're talking particularly in the realm of guest service training, pull back and ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? What makes you number one in your category? How does your business impact the lives of your guests? So this is very, very aspirational. This is very wide here. This is not even thinking about training. This is thinking about what are we specifically and what is the connection that we make with our guests in their lives?
So I think it's important that you do start with that vision. That's a great kind of step one, because if you don't know what that vision is, how are you going to get there? Right? Because you're just going to be kind of wandering aimlessly. I was talking to a client this morning about a master plan for their organization. And he was talking about, we've been working for a year and a half on this master plan, and this includes attraction development, this includes marketing, this includes our financial outlook, it includes everything that you would think of over the course of time. And he said, but it starts with the vision. It starts with the vision of how we're going to make decisions in the future, as much as what kind of attraction we think we might install.
Yeah. So the second part is now creating the standard. So as we kind of unpack the GX vision, ask yourself, how are you going to fulfill that GX vision? So really establishing what that standard is, what you expect from your team in terms of how they are going to execute that vision. What are your frontline staff capable of doing within the parameters of their job? So now we're actually not thinking about the actual training piece of it, but saying, well, what is it that they're actually going to be trained on? And so now it's connecting the guest experience vision, which what will then become eventually the training, and really building the bridge in between.
So I don't know if you're going to talk about this in the other steps because we haven't previewed this yet. To me, this is also about hiring. When you talk about the capabilities of those frontline team members, we have to look for that in the hiring process. Do they, have that hospitality heart already? Do we have to teach them some things about, what it means to serve others? So I think there's an element in there, again, where this may not be a training issue. This could be a hiring issue.
And the logistics of that can be trained on, that can be educated. But the desire, the intention, the alignment with the vision, that needs to be teased out.
Absolutely.
So step three, now we're actually talking about training. So this is about communicating the standard. So how do your staff know what the standard is from day one, from the moment that they are wearing that name tag that identifies themselves? Call back to the previous episode. What training do they actually need to complete before they interact with a guest? Many of the organizations I talk to, they hire an employee, they put on their name tag and uniform, and they're thrusted right out the door onto the floor, right on stage, essentially. And it might just be, that employee's been there a little bit longer than you. Go watch them for the day. So I've seen training that's That's what that consists of. So really establishing what training must they complete before they interact with the guest, and then asking those granular questions of how are they doing it, when is it, how long is it, so you know exactly the flow that that employee is going to take. Not only do you know that, but that employees also know that journey that they take from the moment that I'm signing that HR paperwork to the moment that I'm now interacting with the guests in full up to speed and upskill.
Well, and I think this is also a callback to our previous episode as we talked about the name tag and creating a special process or a special celebration around receiving your name tag and like people feeling special about it. And like this is like Superman opening up his shirt and revealing the S, right? You're putting on your name tag, and now you are the superhero that is going to, fix all your guests' problems, or you're going to proactively make sure that they have a great time. But if you don't have that feeling and desire, all the training in the world is not going to help you get there. So I think this absolutely aligns with, hey, is it training or is it something else?
Exactly. And so number four is, how do you know they're actually paying attention during their training? So it's assessing comprehension of the standard. So how do you know that your team members know what is expected from them? How is their knowledge assessed? And what happens if they don't fully comprehend the standard? So you can have the best training in the world, but if it doesn't resonate, or if the team member doesn't actually latch onto it and fully appreciate it and comprehend it, then it's not going to be apparent in their interactions that they have with their guests. They're in their on the job duties.
I would argue that if people are not paying attention and they're not latching on to the content, that you don't have the best training in the world,
Mm.
right?
You put
Because
that on the employer, not the employee.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because every time that you are interacting with someone in a training environment, you need to be assessing, are they paying attention? Are they getting it? Which is why, especially when you're doing complex, like running a ride type training, you can't do it with 20 or 30 people. There's no way you're going to be able to assess that many people's skill level. So it's one-on-one or one-on-two potentially. So I think the way that you assess that is you have to observe, right? Are they getting it? Are you seeing them do things? Asking questions to follow up to say, are you understanding where we are, and not just a yes or no question, but give me some input back. I can't tell you how many times I've said to someone, hey, does this make sense? Are we on the right track? Oh yeah, we're good, we're good, we're good, right? And then you ask them a comprehension question or put this into some practice, and there's fumbling and there's misalignment. And not that that's a bad thing, because I think everybody needs that time to figure out how to put it in place for themselves, but we have to go through that process. If you're training someone how to run a ride and you never see them hit the dispatch button, you're never going to know if they really know the sequence of events that they have to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. Number five, sustain the standard. So this now kind of calls back to those earlier episodes that we did just a few weeks ago of what rewards or incentives are in place for exceeding the standard. So this ties in with the motivation that they now know the standard, they've been assessed, so they comprehend the standard. Now, when they're actually doing it, how do we make sure we keep doing it? This also ties in with the ongoing training and development as well. So how are team members motivated to continue performing positively? And we need to address the flip side of the coin as well of how are team members coached when they fall below the standard to lift their performance back to the standard expected from them? Is it discipline or is it coaching? What do those conversations look like to make sure that it resonates with the team member while also not demotivating them when they go back out into the workplace?
So I think there's a couple things in here. This is a pretty robust one. I love it. But I think there's a through line to some of these, which is about leadership example. When you talk about, here's what we trained you how to do in your training, and then here's how we did it on the job, and we saw what you did and those type of things. But then as soon as your leader comes in and does it differently, now you're training them differently, right? So you're training them on a different way to do it. And if you are recognizing the previous behavior, the trained behavior, but you're doing it in a different way, that's conflicting motivation, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to have that example set. And then to your point about, are we recognizing it? Are we disciplining people? Are we coaching people? I think that all goes back to the vision of the culture that you want to create, because that experience, as much as anything else, should be part of what you're thinking about how you want people to go through that. So let's say somebody doesn't meet the standard. Well, our vision is to create, an engaging, positive, wonderful experience for people. Well, don't we want to do that for our team members as well? So thinking about that when you're coaching them, I want this to be engaging. I want this to be thoughtful. I want this to be something where they're walking away better than when they started. So now I have that attitude and that thought process that's going to guide my behavior.
Nice. Nicely said.
Thank you.
All right. Number six, celebrate success. So not only are we recognizing and reinforcing positive behavior, but how are you broadcasting when the guest experience vision is brought to life? Where can team members quickly access success stories that exemplify the guest experience standard? So that could be, how are they tied in with shift meetings? How are they really posted to say, this is exactly what we're looking for, aspirationally what we want to see, and this is where it was done, and this is the guest's viewpoint of it. And this is what we want to make sure we do time and time again. And then how do you outwardly celebrate the success of your team so that your guest experience standard becomes a marketable asset? So at the simplest version of this, it's sharing testimonials, right? But it can be that simple, or it can be really compiling guest stories that you're using. It could be for social media content, it could be for marketing content, it could be for commercials of true stories of the impact that you've made on guests' lives beyond, we came here and we had a great time and we had fun as a family, etc. Is no, what are those very specific stories that go beyond the standard experience that show the importance of your GX vision and bringing it to life?
To me, this is all about the cause and effect, right? Because let's put ourselves in the shoes of a frontline team member, right? And we are loving our job, we enjoy what we do, we love helping the guests, and we do something for a family that just makes us feel good, makes the family feel good. And oh, by the way, then the family goes and leaves a review, or they go to guest services, or they seek out some way to share this example. And I may or may not see that as the frontline team member, right? But let's say they go to guest services. Now that may go back to my supervisor. So my supervisor might share that with me. That's great. And then here comes the folks from communications. They want to take a picture of me to put me on social media because they've got this story and they want a picture of me, the frontline team member. And now I'm being recognized out there in front of all my peers. And now I can share that and tell my parents that I'm actually doing something fun, right?
Yeah.
So this is a full circle cause and effect. But to your point, it has all those arms of influence that we can tap into.
Yeah, absolutely. And the seventh and final step here is then reevaluate the standard. So this is something that has no limit to it. When I talk about guest experience, there's no plateau. You can continually expand upon your own success. So how often do you redefine or enhance your guest service standard or your guest experience vision? Who's involved with that process? Can you get the frontline team as part of that as well to really make sure they've got their input? And then how can you make it better and push the limits? So if you are number one in the world in your category, you can ask yourself how to create a bigger buffer between number one and number two. And that's about being in competition with yourself and continually reevaluating that standard and pushing it further.
Either that or going to different planets.
Or just go to different planets. Yeah.
Expand the world. Yeah, no, I think the reevaluation part is something we should always be doing with our organizations, just to see, are we doing everything that we possibly can? Let's say we're number two, right? Based on our metrics. Well, what is it going to take to get to number one? But not only just to get to number one, but surpass them, right?
Mhm.
And one of my favorite things to do with a group is to think not about what we've done before or what everybody else is doing, but what's nobody doing? What's that really weird out of the box idea that you have that you think, oh, I better never bring this up because I'm going to get laughed out of the room. But that's how we get innovation. That's how we get new examples of how people can be served. Probably everything that you experience when you go to a movie theater or a hotel or a theme park is somebody saying, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And that then leads to new ways to serve your guests. And by the way, also new and exciting things for your team member to do that keeps them motivated.
Yeah, exactly. And then you just start right back over. So
Exactly.
cool. 7 steps to craft a guest service culture. Would love any feedback on it, or how are you creating your service culture within your organizations? Feel free to reach out to us on the socials, and can't wait to hear what people have to say.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for bringing this up, Josh. I really enjoyed the conversation. And for everybody out there who's watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.